Good morning and welcome to Legal Tech Live. I'm Nick Rishwain, your host for today, and joining me we have Catherine Krow, CEO of Digitory Legal. Catherine spent 17 years practicing at a large law firm. You were a partner in the San Francisco office of Orrick, Harrington, and Sutcliffe, and associate there as well, and also an associate at Simpson, Thacher, and Bartlett. You've represented large companies, I'm assuming, in complex litigations of all kinds. And in 2015, she started Digitory Legal, and Digitory Legal is working to replace the timekeepers in the litigation. In litigation, you're trying to make budgeting simpler for law firms and for clients, and trying to work to make budgeting, litigation budgets, essentially easier and more accurate. Is that a good summary of what you're trying to accomplish?
Yes, easier and more accurate. Come at this from the perspective of a practicing lawyer, big firm practicing lawyer, and with sophisticated clients who wanted budgets. And it was very, very difficult to get that right and to then manage your team to those budgets. In fact, I think close to impossible, and it was being done a lot by Excel spreadsheets or Word documents. And then you had a massive disconnect between you and your client when the scope of the matter changed. It always did. And they didn't understand why their bills were now 2 to 5 times what you originally estimated. Yeah. And it's a problem for practicing lawyers and for clients, and I wanted to solve it.
Excellent. And I think it's a great problem to solve, because I never really practiced. I was, a law clerk and and a law student associate for many years while in school, but I never actually practiced law. But I do recall that it often seems to be that the conversation is talked about sort of in that early phase. And then the clients, and we were talking a small firm, not a large firm, and then things are going along for a while, and the clients are like, this is costing a heck of a lot more than we talked about originally, and what am I getting out of this? Is that the same at the large law firms? Are they also surprised when they start getting bills and you start getting close to, well, we thought it would cost this much, but it's going to be far more than that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem across the industry, and I did a lot of research, make sure it wasn't just me or some of my colleagues. It is a problem across the industry, from small firms to the biggest firms in the world, which is, those are the places that I practiced. Mm-hmm. And part of the issue is that litigation in particular, it changes. So you can expect there to be 5 depositions and end up with 55. The problem is that when you create the budget, it is not done with enough rigor as a general matter. And the client doesn't understand necessarily that you assumed 5 depositions, and they don't know what the difference between 5 and 55 is. So, I tried to create a solution that educates the client on what those cost drivers are, makes the assumptions clear, and is really easy to use, because when you're practicing law and you've got a gun to your head to get stuff done, mm-hmm. It's hard to deal with dashboards and spreadsheets and mess. You need something that is idiot proof. And that's the perspective I came from.
I like that because the clients that I was used to were smaller in nature, but the amount of money is the same, right? It may be a smaller matter, but how much they have to spend on that matter is the same as a Fortune 500 company on a large matter, and how much they have to spend for that. It's still applicable, and and it's frightening for clients to go, what are we doing here? And how much are we really going to spend, and what are our chances to succeed, and what do we really get if we succeed? And an example that I found in the demo that I posted to Snapchat while I was getting ready here. The example that I found that was really kind of telling under your templates was a contract case, complexity to $100,000 in damages, and a budget total of $433,000.
Yep.
And as a client, you're thinking to yourself, wait a second, I'm just trying to recover $100,000 and I'm going to spend $400,000 to recover this?
And maybe the answer there is don't sue them.
Don't sue them.
You know, some part of the templates is a realism check, a reality check. And you know, we use default rates, so you can easily repopulate the templates with your own rates. It's part of making it easier for the lawyer to create a detailed budget that has a lot of critical thinking already done for them, but also to educate the client, because there's a lot of tasks that go into litigating anything. And if you were dealing with a contract case for a small amount of money and you take it soup to nuts, and that $400,000 includes trial, appeal, and expenses. But if you take it soup to nuts, you're going to lose a ton of money. Yeah. And you should probably settle it. Yeah.
And I think that I was thinking of it more from, because as you know, I fall somewhere between a lawyer and between a client who really just acts in the legal tech sector these days. So I was looking at it as a client's perspective, and if an attorney could present that to a client.
Yeah.
And say, this is really what we're looking at. Are you sure you want to proceed with this? I think that is a huge asset for the client.
I think so too. And it's interesting you mentioned that, because we haven't marketed very much yet at all. Our enterprise release is coming up in a few weeks, and that's when we're going to do our big push. Excellent. But we have found users coming to us, just finding us on the internet, including one who does a lot of mediation. And he uses Digitory Legal and requires the parties before him to use Digitory Legal as part of their budgeting, so that he can evaluate the cost of the case, the real cost, and talk to the parties about what their walkaway numbers should be. And the Digitory Legal system helps you really understand exactly how the sausage is made in a litigation and walk through all of the elements and see what's involved. And as a settlement tool, or as a help educate your client on what this is really going to mean to them, it's hugely valuable.
Yes, I have to agree with you. And naturally, I promote legal tech as a whole, so I'm probably not going to disagree with you a lot, because these advances are necessary for clients. This is... It was very simple. In the demo, and I spent about 30 minutes trying to demo. The user interface is fantastic.
Thank you.
That is really, now if I spend some more time, I think I'll really know what I'm doing in it. And for informing a client, what kept popping into my mind was the old medical malpractice issue of informed consent. This is kind of giving the client the opportunity to make informed consent of, do you even want to bring a suit in this?
The litigation in particular is a lot harder and a lot more expensive than people think it is. And I remember dealing with clients who's felt that their livelihood was on the line, and trying to explain to them, exactly what they were getting into when they were angry, and just, wanted to go after the other side, or scorch the earth. Scorching the earth costs money, and our system tells you how much that's going to cost. If you need to depose the CEO 8 times, well, guess what? That's there's an average cost per high-level deposition built in there, so you can see every time you get angry what that decision is going to cost you.
Right. And the classic client who, I don't care what it costs, I want to do the vengeful client. I don't care what it costs.
Yeah, they
Well,
always do.
You might.
They always care what it costs.
Maybe you say that now, but let's take a look at this. And now it sounds like you guys created this because it is so difficult for lawyers to accurately budget how much a litigation is going to cost, and that does lead to a lot of guesswork on how much it's going to cost, and which leads to some mistrust, as you mentioned in some of the notes you provided me, between the lawyer and the client. But there's something in fact I kind of learned of it from Jay when we interviewed him, that there has been a rise in these alternative fee arrangements. I knew about the alternative fee arrangements actually, but the rise of the RFP, which I expect as a contractor or somebody of that nature to do, I didn't realize that law firms are essentially now doing requests for proposals just like anybody else.
And so we start with the AFAs, and I'm sure Jay's in the patent area. They're becoming very, very common in there in the patent area, and I see a lot of users in the patent area because it's very difficult for law firms to create an AFA that's going to make sense for them. It's really hard for them. It's difficult to assess exactly what you're going to do and how much it's going to cost. So this kind of budget mapping is very helpful in assessing whether you should offer or accept an alternative fee arrangement, because you know what it's going to cost you. The RFP thing is very interesting. It's come about a lot with the rise of procurement being involved in securing and deciding which legal providers are going to be chosen. And I would recommend that anybody on the law firm side who deals with RFPs become a friend of Buying Legal Counsel. This is a great group, very informative, to learn about how RFPs and what the decisions, what they're looking for when RFPs come out. So the combination of having to respond to a competitive bid situation and having to deal with requests for alternative fee arrangements means that lawyers really need to do this a lot better than they ever used to, and attack it with a kind of rigor that what I call the percentage of time model doesn't have. And by percentage of time, I mean who's going to be staffed to it over what period of time, and about 50% of their time. So, so 1,000 hours. Let's put those numbers together and hand it to a client. And they're wrong a lot.
Yeah. Wow. And this, you come from big law, and I wonder if big law has experienced this. And Jay is sharing with us some comments from Cornelius Vanderbilt. You have undertaken to cheat me. I won't sue you, for the law is too slow and expensive. I'll ruin you. And then lawyers are terrible at budget estimations. That is correct. Thank you, Jay, for the input there. But I'm wondering if enterprise or large law firms, the big law, were they experiencing the requests for more detailed budgets? Sort of the rise of legal tech has really taken off since the 2007-2008 crash. Is that when you noticed that there was now a demand for more detailed budgets, or was it something else? Was it just entirely, I think we need to do this?
So law is evolving. When I started in general, and it's not just as the rise of tech, it's also just a complete, people are done with the billable hour. It breeds inefficiency, and people realize that. And the more sophisticated clients are demanding budgets, and they have systems that if you exceed that budget, you don't get paid. So systems like enterprise legal management systems, where large clients will have these implemented, and they're expensive. Most middle market companies, don't invest in something, that big. But a lot of large law firms are used to putting their budgets into Serengeti, T360, large ELMs, and having to go back to their clients for overages and try to explain why their original budget estimate was wrong. So that's been around for a while, just being sick of having budgets be blown. And now there are systems that you have to communicate with your client and ask them, please, for an overage. And it has a huge business consequence, and they really don't like you if you do that. So that sort of thing has driven, those systems have been around for a while. They are really only used by the larger companies because they're expensive. But law firms have been used to writing budgets and dealing with the do not exceed. And this is where that, oh no, I don't know how to do this moment starts to happen.
Because this is harmful to the firm as well as the client and their relationship. If they totally undersell on the thing and they're in, and we haven't even gone to trial yet, but we gave this amount and they're telling us we can't pay for now trial, that's probably an extreme situation. But if there's an appeal or something and we didn't factor that in, and they're saying, well, you were going to do this from point A to completion, whatever that was, this can be harmful for the attorney, because now the attorney is essentially working for free, and or the client when they have to go back to them for cost overages.
So what the system does, you spent some time on it. You probably saw that there are average costs per task in there. It is true that you can't 100% anticipate exactly what's going to happen. You can get a sense based on experience, particularly if it's the sort of case that has happened many times before. You'll see, non-practicing entity cases brought against multiple entities. They're going to want more do not exceed budgets. But one of the reasons the average cost per task are generated by our system is so that when the variables change and you do have to go back to the business people and say, I need an overage, I'm off my budget, here's why, and they don't feel just like they're writing you blank checks. They understand how much those, what you assumed the first time, what actually happened, and how much that should change the costs. So depositions, extra motions, court conferences, how many did you assume at first? What was your average cost? And are you trying to stay within those?
Okay, excellent. That's good. Jay says the problem with budgets is that they're based on the billable hour, which is a total guess about hours required. So how is Digitory Legal addressing? I noticed in the website, in the user interface, that you have some staffing already included based on those staffing hourly rates. Is that the main way that you're addressing the billable hour and the inefficiencies that it breeds? At least we can predict based on that.
So there's a project management and collaboration element to this. So as a lawyer, who is compensated based on the billable hour, you have a great incentive to over-lawyer. Your team does. And so what the Digitory Legal framework does is task and timekeeper level tracking. So when you map out the case, and I used to do this by hand to try and figure out who was doing what and how long it was going to take them. You map out the entire anatomy of the litigation using this tool. And you can see in the notes and the templates that there's a lot of critical thinking associated with who's doing what. You figure out approximately how many depositions, what kind they are, about what, which experts you're going to need. And you assign who's going to be on this issue? Who's going to be controlling the interviews? Who's the person I'm going to send down to do this? And then you can set hours per task so that those people have an expectation of how long these tasks should take before they start billing. And you can get them all on board. So it's a collaborative tool. Your entire team should be involved in signing off on the budget, in agreeing that that's what things should take, in providing input before you lock down those numbers. And then they can manage themselves to those numbers. And my experience in law was that the budget was handled by one person, and it didn't trickle down or get shared with everybody else on the team. And they had no idea what the client's expectations would be. And some lawyers were better at this than others, better at communicating, but they didn't understand that when they stayed up all night to prep for that deposition, that maybe wasn't a good thing. Or they needed to tell somebody, I'm staying up all night to get this absolutely perfect. And I was raised in a tradition, I shouldn't say raised, but trained in a tradition of excellence. And you can build that excellence in, because I would take longer to prep for an oral argument, but I knew that. And so I could write that into the budget. I expect that junior associates will take a little bit longer to prep, but they should know about what's reasonable.
Yeah, and I like that. I like this. I like that you said they can manage themselves and manage their time. So a junior associate will know going in, you should spend about this kind of time on it. And if you spend more than that, we really can't build a client for that. So that is something you need to know up front. That gives the mid-level associate or the first-year associate or whatever some idea about it going into it, and that anything over that is not billable. And so I can manage my expectations of what I need to put into this. That gives guidance to a younger attorney, which I think is great. Now I want to switch it a little bit, switch our where we're going with this, because I think we could talk about this, about your system forever, because I really do think this is a great system. And Jay, I want you to talk with Catherine afterwards about doing a demo, because I think you're going to like this. But I want to know how you guys are currently as a business, where you're at, who's adopting it so far. Are you aiming for big law? Are you going across the board from solo to medium to big law? Who is using your system right now?
So the users right now, where we are right now is it's generally available at the single user level. And we have priced that essentially just to build advocacy, to get people trying it. It's, you can build unlimited matters for $40 a month at the single user level. And that's so that people can see the power of the tool. We are, and it also makes it accessible to smaller companies, smaller firms that really can't invest in these extremely, 6 to 7 figure on-site, on-premises build-outs that are just really expensive and too much power for what they need to solve their problems. We are releasing, so anyone can test it out right now. And I have users on the system in big law. I have users on the system as solo practitioners, medium-sized law firms. I have, some client side testing it out. So it's really for everybody, clients, law firms of all sizes.
Excellent. And you have all users right now testing it out from all sizes, it sounds like. Okay.
Yeah. We haven't released the enterprise level, which is when we're going to start marketing. And the difference with enterprise, there are multiple features that you can get with enterprise, but you can access everybody's budgets, advanced search for everybody's budgets, set user roles and permissions, brand it yourself, you create your own templates, and so on at the enterprise level.
And do you have at this point any paying customers, or are you not marketing that right now? Are you in like kind of a beta, or do you have people you already have members who are paying members?
Well, no, we don't have
Okay.
paying customers right now because we're just trying to build
Okay.
advocacy. So what you have multiple stakeholders in deciding, at the enterprise level. You have, operations, you have sometimes procurement, and you have the practicing attorneys. And the practicing attorneys are the people who have to use it. And this is where you have the disconnect on legal tech adoption, because so much technology is driven by people who like data and dashboards, and it's not created for the people who have to use it. So we're building advocacy right now in the people who have to use it. We're just getting the word out about what we're doing, but we haven't marketed, we haven't started pushing. So we're just right on the cusp.
Excellent. And we like guests who are right on the cusp, because it's an exciting time, and then they can come back in the future and tell us how things have progressed. And yeah,
I would love to do that.
That's what is joyful about this experience, because you're right there. This is, I have to ask now, are you a coder? And did you participate in the building of this design, or is this one of those things where you brought in somebody to assist?
I brought in people. So I am actually what I would say the target demographic when it comes to the dinosaur user. I designed something that who could barely turn on my computer, I hate Excel. I'm one of the many lawyers who doesn't use it and can't stand using it. And I am the target user. If I can use this system, if I find it easy, then anybody can. But when it comes to the coding, I have a development team and partner in Agave Lab. So they've been doing the work with me, and I have a full suite of developers, and they're great. And they built exactly what I wanted. So I design it and come up with exactly what it needs to do and map that out and then code it.
And I love that it you can feel it when you're in there. The first thing that hit me was aesthetically it's pleasing, which is nice. And then the interaction, my user experience was very smooth. And that I think is great, because the probably overarching theme of the 25 or 26 episodes that we've probably more than that now that we've done is attorney adoption being a problem. And it has to be easy in order to get them to adopt. Now, they have to adopt a lot of new technology in the near future that's going to be difficult for them to adopt. But this is a cloud-based system. All the information will be stored in the cloud. There's no on-site software, correct? Okay.
Exactly. Yes.
And so per user, it will be about a $40 a month charge, but you may have, you're going to be working on enterprise level membership as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So the single user is really priced to build adoption. Enterprise level, it's really going to depend on how many users, what they need. So that's really kind of based on each company situation, length of time of the contract and so on.
And what about, and this is where it gets, maybe you can answer, maybe you can't. Investors, have you had seed rounds? Are you doing any of that, venture capital? And what can you share about that?
So we have an open round now that is at about halfway. About the halfway mark, and we are accepting seed investment, and we will close the round as soon as we hit the threshold. So we're actively seeking investment, but we are already on the cusp. I have not had a single bad review with the hardest graders pretty much on the planet using the system. Big law partners, legal operations people. So we have a lot of opportunities coming down the pike for the enterprise, a lot of interest for when we get that released. So we are in active investment for a little bit longer on the seed round, and then we're gonna shut that down, put our heads down for a couple years, and create the next level of development, which is, so enterprise is coming. We are working on an RFP tool at the moment on the client side, and some integration plans with other platforms as well.
That is fantastic to hear. You said marketing is coming up soon. Can we expect to start seeing Digitory Legal all over the internet in what kind of a time frame?
I'd say probably in about 6 weeks, we'll start a marketing campaign. And there will be a social media element to that. I think we're going to focus a lot on LinkedIn, and that seems to be a great platform for us. And I don't know if you've read my blog, but I've had very good reception to that. And so we'll continue LinkedIn posting. Yes, you are going to see us on the internet and so on. But there's a lot of word of mouth that lawyers are very dedicated to being middle of the pack. So there's a lot of me reaching out to my connections to show them what we're doing, which, you know, we haven't been actively doing because we only had the single user platform. And once the enterprise is released, we're going to pursue that. And I've been in this industry for a long time. I know a lot of people, and I know a lot of people who need this.
It seems to be something that a lot of people would need. When that was my initial feeling when I was playing in it. I was like, this makes sense. It automatically made sense to me. You know, this is something that, and even more so from a client perspective, this is something I'd want to know before I start spending.
Yeah, there's from a client perspective, one of the things that has always troubled me about the industry is that smaller clients have less ability to identify when they're being lowballed. And so for lawyers who are competing fairly in the space and providing as accurate numbers as they can, it's not fair competition. And the smaller clients don't have the visibility into what is a real budget versus I can do this for, you know, $400,000 no problem, when they know it's going to cost 3 or 4 times that. This is a system that gives them, of clients of any size, individual clients, small companies, any size company, visibility into what a real budget is. And they can ask their prospective lawyers to provide budgets through Digitory Legal and compare apples to apples. And now you can see what they're all assuming and whether those budgets make sense.
Excellent. And Jay has a question off to the side here. He says, kind of off the cuff, can you explain more about your strategy to get the word out to the legal community beyond word of mouth?
There's a lot of conferences involved in this. So the legal tech community and the legal community is very involved in conferences. And, you know, I've spent a lot of time trying to identify the best ones. And that's where a lot of our marketing strategy is going to be. So, you know, there will be an internet, there will be word of mouth. I am working those connections, but conferences are going to be a lot of them.
Okay, excellent. Catherine, tell me, we've got about five or 7 minutes left here. Tell me what really pushed you to leave big law, leave the safety of a great job, and to create something that you felt the community really needed, the legal community really needed.
You know, it's a good question. A lot of people think, why on earth would you were a partner at Oric, you were actually, I was trying cases, which, and pretty successfully for large companies, which was unusual to be able to do at a large law firm. I came off a very large trial and a great win, and I was, you know, doing well by all external measures. and realized that, the practice of law is like a pie eating contest where the reward for good work is more pie. And if I did not make a change at that point in my career, I would be just trying more cases for bigger companies for the next 20 years. And I wanted to try something different that worked for my values and not the external values of other people. I am not one who has been driven by prestige and stability and money her whole life. I wanted to build something and do something brave, and I love my industry. It has problems, and we can solve them, and we should.
So you were driven or inspired by more the personal reward of building something to solve a problem that you saw that needed a solution. It was a problem that needs a solution, and so is that what drove you to? I don't need more pie. I want something that I find more personally rewarding.
I've had a good amount of pie. I enjoy pie, but I need to change my diet a little bit. And you can end up in a trajectory that makes sense to the rest of the world and doesn't make sense to you. And I did a little bit of soul searching about what made sense to me, and building something and taking risks and leaving a legacy that is possible for my kids too to see was what mattered to me. And yes, when this thing takes off, I believe me, I'll take the financial reward. But I am not driven by needing to be in a stable situation with a clear path. I don't have a problem taking risks.
And I think that's great. I think that's a part of the story that even on my show, I'm not sure or on this show, when Ivan is also able to make it, I'm not sure we've done our best to tackle that issue with most of our guests, and it's something I want to improve on, because the story behind the entrepreneurial spirit in legal tech, or what drove you to try and solve this problem, is really an important story for your business too, because that builds the brand loyalty. If they get to see, I now understand why this person went and did that, and telling the story is the more fun aspect of the business world than the actual nuts and bolts of the business. So I'm glad you were able to share that with us today. Is there anything before we wrap up here, is there anything we didn't cover that you think should be added to tell a little bit more of the Digitory Legal story?
I think we are trying to elevate the profession, and I am committed to elevating the profession. I believe in excellence in legal work. I believe that there is a place for that, but that shouldn't require a blank check. And we, as a company, are trying to do something really, really positive for the industry as a whole that serves not just the interests of law firms, but also the interests of clients. I do not believe it's a zero-sum game, that if you serve one at the expense of others, and anything that builds that connection and advances the strength of the attorney-client relationship is a good thing. And that's what we're trying to do.
Fantastic to hear, because this is also in part an access to justice issue. It's know what you can afford before you get into it, and from a client's perspective, because there are many clients who are finding it difficult to get things rectified through the legal system because of the cost. This will help them, guide them in their decision making to go forward with something. So I realize you'll be the enterprise level, maybe not as tied to access to justice, but it does have that. There is a touchstone there as well as access to justice.
Yeah, and we will also have nonprofit pricing. So, if nonprofits need this to manage their spend, we want to make sure it's accessible to them. So that if anybody is in the nonprofit world and would need this, please, they can contact us directly, but there is nonprofit pricing available. And there will always be a single user element so that the small firms or the individuals can have some access without having to roll out, a $6 or $7 million
Excellent.
system, or six figure or
Right.
7-figure.
Yeah, excellent. And where can everybody find you, you personally, and of course, company? Please give us the context that you wish to share.
We are in San Francisco. The office is at 550 Montgomery Street. You can always reach us at DigitoryLegal.com. You can reach me at Krow, CKROW, at DigitoryLegal.com. Find us on the web, Twitter at DigitoryLegal.
And with that, that is the end of our Legal Tech Live show today. I'm Nick Rishwain. Thank you for Jay for being here. I hope our replay viewers find this helpful. Thank you, Catherine, so much. I love the system. I want to play with it a little bit more. Maybe I can give some feedback from somebody who's in between the client and the legal profession, and hope that you'll come back and tell us about how wildly successful Digitory Legal has become in 6 months or a year.
Thank you. Thank you. I look forward to that.
And don't go away, because we can still chat once we end, but I'm going to go ahead and do the countdown for the end.
That's awesome. Thank you very, very much. And I look forward to coming back in a while and
I look forward to that as well. Jay, thanks again. You guys both have a wonderful Saturday.
Hi.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.